Hello, my name is Anish Pandit, and I'll be talking about the endangerment of the Maryland darterfish. So I'll basically start off by doing a brief introduction of the fish, and then I'll talk a little bit more about how climate change can affect the fish and conservation efforts that have been put in place and what I think we could do to help the fish survive. So it basically, the Maryland darter is a freshwater ray-finned fish. It lives about 3 years and it was first spotted in 1912 and first scientifically named in 1913. And I put the scientific name in brackets. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that because I know I'm gonna mess it up. So yeah, just leave it there and you could just use that. And it was listed as endangered in 1967, and it was last seen in 1988. And some attributes that could be the reason to why we that could attribute to us not seeing the fish is it's a bottom dweller fish and has only been found in Maryland creeks. Hence the name of the fish, the Maryland darter. But it's a bottom dweller and their specific environment only allows us to, which I'll get more into later, will is probably a reason that we haven't found the fish in so many years. And basically I listed the classification here, and in the next slide about the anatomy and physiology, I basically have a picture of a perch, which is like the closest thing I could find in the family of the fish. So for its anatomy, because I didn't find the anatomy of the actual fish itself, because if it's endangered, they're not just gonna kill it. So yeah, and I have a picture of another darter fish, another type of darter fish that has the physical features of it. So, in a little bit the anatomy and physiology of the fish is basically there's not much known about the anatomy, but from what we know of the perch, it should be very similar to it. But obviously, we won't know until we actually find a Maryland darter and do some research on it and do some like not research, but some dissection if it's possible and just research that way. And physiology, it's distinguishable from other darter fish due to having a larger head and asymmetrical caudal fins, and it could grow up to 3 inches. Or I had put a more specific maximum length that they could grow up to, and I put that 70 millimeters into a converter, and it was about 2.7 inches. So it's like more accurate would be like 2.7 inches to 3 inches. It could grow up to, and it has tenoid scales. I'm not sure if I said that right, but basically it allows them to camouflage using reflection of the light and their coloration, and that could really come in handy when the fish is down in the water, because it's a bottom dweller fish, so I could really use that tide along with some other reasons that I'll get into when I talk about their habitat. And it has a straight lateral line with 43 to 53 scales. So where does the Maryland darter live? So map. I have a map right here, basically Chesapeake watershed, and then the Chesapeake Bay, the Atlantic Ocean, and Susquehanna River right here. And basically, we just found the fish like right here, and basically in Hartford County. And it's in these three creeks, which are tributaries to the Susquehanna River: the Deer Creek, Gashies Run, and Swan Creek. And basically, what we found with these creeks that we had, which could contribute to the fish only choosing to live there, is basically it's a freshwater creek, obviously, since it's a freshwater fish, and they like a clean, well oxygenated environment, and they like swiftly flowing parts of a stream. So it's like the current of the streams flows like decently well, and it doesn't really the speed of the current doesn't change a whole lot. And they prefer rock crevices and similar shelters in the water. So basically that, and their color and the scales that they have could all attribute to them hiding and be making it harder for us to find them. So I have a quote here that basically it just tells that they're environment is so weird and specific for them that like even the researchers that went to the Deer Creek, they didn't expect to find anything, but they still showed up to that creek because they knew the fish might be there because that's what it prefers. And basically, this is just more on that last quote. It's just why they wrote what they did right here. And basically, right here, I have a chart right here, basic, or it's a graph, no chart, just showing the percentage of development in like all this. So basically, Deer Creek is just still mostly agriculture and forest, and there's not much development there. So that's why they went to Deer Creek specifically, because not much has changed and it's pretty much the same from back in the day when the fish was still like around. It could probably be seen. And the Deer Creek snail density. So basically just the density of snails and basically snails are what they eat. So it just shows that this creek would be one of the best to try to find the fish because it has what they eat. It's pretty much perfect compared to how it was back in the day. And here's a food web of the fish. Now there would be something like here, but basically I didn't include that because most of the time whatever's like up here would just basically eat these fish because these fish probably live more closer to the surface, and it's just like birds that just swoop in and just pick them up out the water and stuff like that that eat these fish here. So I didn't really include it because it wouldn't directly affect the darter fish, but you could just think of it like more like land animals that come to eat like fishes and stuff would eat these fish. And basically it just starts at the producers at the bottom, like the more plants, and the plants are the really, really small organisms. And then you have the smaller snails, the caddisfly larvae, mayfly larvae, and stonefly that the darterfish like to eat. And here you have the darterfish and the smaller fish, and then the perch and just the more aggressive, bigger fish in the river. And basically those eat the darterfish. So how does climate affect this fish? So climate change could really be viewed like a couple of different ways, but basically, since I was thinking more about how could climate change affect a freshwater fish, but then I thought, okay, the Susquehanna River is here, and it's connected to the Chesapeake Bay, which is connected to the ocean. So anything that could happen to the ocean could really affect this fish, like water levels rising and ocean acidification. And ocean acidification can really lead to the water quality becoming worse or the pH of the water becoming worse. So I have this picture here that just shows the Chesapeake Bay's health is being stressed due to elevated temperatures, and they have the key of what everything means over here, or the legend, as it says right here. And you could just see that it's the grade is dropping just due to the what do you call it? Just elevated temperatures compared to before. And another thing that I thought of was that even though like you're like, oh, how can like a car or like smokestacks affect the fish, even because it's only the air that's being affected. But no, it's not, because the air is part of the water in the water molecule buildup or the formula of it. It's just if that oxygen is contaminated, then the water will be contaminated as well. And I just thought that like that if the ocean is getting killed just because of the oxygen being contaminated, it would be bad because everything in the ocean would start declining, and maybe we might start running out of food or meat that we could feed people, and it would just affect a lot of industries that rely off these fish. And here I just have a quote that increase in temperature will just stress any or just stress or affect everything that's just natural. Like agriculture is being messed up. Um, Dairy cattle um, are not producing as much milk as they should. And basically just saying that with the increase of temperature, that if they can't even, like, if ski resorts that use artificial snow can't even sustain using artificial snow, that it just shows that even the surrounding wildlife to the fish, even though the temperature may not affect the fish directly, it'll still like affect what it eats and like some of the stuff around it, which could affect the habitat as a whole. So some conservation efforts that I think we could put in place, and then I'll get into we're trying that what the Bay, Chesapeake Bay, and a couple other organizations are trying to do. So basically, what I think is, first of all, you just need to get people to dispose of things properly, because if we recycle when and where we're supposed to, and like empty out like old like old like oils or bleach or whatever's like expired, like, and dispose of it correctly rather than just dumping it in our yard and be like, oh, the ground's going to absorb it, we're fine. But no, if it rains, then that is going to get washed up and go somewhere, and it's going to eventually end up in one of these creeks. And that's also another thing that could affect the fish and the surrounding habitat. But and also another thing that we could do before I move on to what the government is trying to do to keep this fish alive, or their recovery plan, is you just need to get the people that live along these creeks and the river to just be on board with what the government's trying to do, because that's going to be the number one thing. Because if people aren't on board, then they'll be like, why are you tearing up my land, blah blah blah, all these other reasons. So basically what we know so far is the fish is being harmed by water degradation and development in the watershed. So they have this Maryland darter recovery plan that they want to implement. So it just implements better farming and forestry practices. And they also want to build buffers to protect the creek. So buffers kind of like isolate the, how do I word this? They isolate the creek in a way, and it's like a filter. So like, for example, I mean, this is a bad analogy, but so in the areas where they have like hurricanes and stuff, they build like buffers to like protect their homes from being like flooded, trying to keep the water like as low as possible and not like protecting their homes and stuff. So it's kind of like that, but this is more of like a natural way to do it. And they want to like use it to just filter what goes into the river, and they don't want really anything to that isn't supposed to get into the river to just stay out, and whatever it actually wants needs to get into the river, like excess like rainwater or whatever can actually enter. And it would like help cooling of the stream bed by like shading it and protecting it from the sun, so it'll cool the stream temperature, the creek temperature. And it also would absorb excess nutrients and like toxic chemicals from runoffs. And here's another quote that I put. It just shows how important the bay is to people that live in the surrounding area. And there's just two tables that I put of how much that they estimate would lead to like the benefit of the Chesapeake Bay. And it just shows that a lot of people will use this bay if it's clean, but if it's not really clean, then no one's going to use it. So it'll really affect our entire economy as a whole, and it'll just affect everything you could think of, because some of the ports like in Baltimore and in the surrounding areas could be affected. like the fisheries that are here, or like the fishing companies that are here catching all these like fish and crab could be affected. And yeah, I'll just go into my concluding remarks now. So first of all, thank you for Mrs. Narangi for giving us this opportunity to research about endangered species, and it really opened my eyes to how we take things for granted. And basically some of the things I listed, like the conservation, I feel like I will definitely start doing more, like what do you call it, disposing of things properly, like not just dumping something in my yard that's not supposed to be dumped there, and probably actually disposing of it properly, like taking it to like the recycle center and get disposing it properly. And just, we take our environment for granted, but it'll affect us in the long run later on, like for generations to come, if we don't take care of it now. And I would like to thank Dr. Matriarcato and her two interns, Regina and Huda, for talking about climate change, because that really was a good starting ground for how I started my research and talked about my how climate change can affect this fish. And Marshall University, Catherine Smith, and Cynthia Morgan and Nicole Owens were basically just the people who wrote some of the articles that I found some of my information. So I'd like to thank them as well. And here's just my bibliography. And yeah, here's just the bibliography, but pictures, but for the pictures instead. And yeah, that's my project. I hope you learned something, and this wasn't a waste of your time. And I hope this could change your thoughts about protecting our environment. And hopefully this can make an impact to you. And this was my presentation. Thank you.